Dad Quiet Revenge. The phone call came on Sunday morning, October 15th, 2024. I was sitting at my kitchen table in Grove City, Ohio, checking my bank balance on my tablet like I do every weekend. The number on the screen made me blink twice. $847. Last Friday, there had been $127,000. I'm Vincent Pearson, 59 years old, been a widower for 4 years now. Most people around here see a quiet guy who works part-time security at Eastland Mall, walking the corridors in my Navy uniform, helping lost shoppers find the food court, dealing with teenagers who think they're clever. What they don't know is that I spent 25 years as a detective with Columbus PD, specializing in financial crimes. When someone steals from me, they pick the wrong target. The phone was ringing. Douglas, my 32-year-old son. Hey, Dad, great news. Remember that startup I told you about, TechFlow Solutions? Well, we just got a major investor. I'm flying to San Francisco tomorrow to sign the deal. I stared at my tablet screen. The morning. Light streaming through my kitchen window, making the numbers seem even starker. The transaction history showed 3 transfers over the past week. October 10th, $45,000 to Douglas C. Pearson. October 12th, $40,000 to Douglas C. Pearson. October the 14th, $41,200 to Douglas C. Pearson. All authorized through online banking. Douglas, I said, keeping my voice level the way I used to when interrogating suspects. We need to talk. Dad, I can't chat long. I'm packing and Barbara's picking me up in 20 minutes for the airport. This deal is going to change everything for us. My bank account, check it. Silence. I could hear traffic in the background, probably from High Street near his apartment in Clintonville. Then, what do you mean? I mean, you cleaned me out. $127,000. Gone. More silence. When Douglas spoke again, his voice had changed. Harder, defensive. Dad, you gave me access to help with your bills, remember? After Mom died, you said you trusted me to help manage things. That was true. 3 months ago, after I'd had some chest pains that landed me in the emergency room, I'd given Douglas my online banking password. He'd been worried about me living alone, said he wanted to help set up automatic bill payments, make sure I didn't miss anything important. I'd only given him access to my checking account, though, the one with about $4,000 for monthly expenses. Not my savings, not my retirement fund. Douglas, you took money from accounts you weren't supposed to access. Look, Dad, I needed it. The startup was about to fail without more capital injection. This is my shot at real success, at building something meaningful. You'll get it all back with interest when we go public. I'm talking millions here. I walked to my home office, a converted bedroom that still smelled faintly of the lavender perfume my wife Carol used to wear. I opened my filing cabinet, the same gray metal one I'd bought when I made detective 20 years ago. Inside was a folder labeled Properties. 2 deeds, the house I live in at 412 Oak Street in Grove City, a modest 3-bedroom ranch I'd bought with my police salary, and my cabin up at Hocking Hills State Park, a little place on 2 acres that I'd bought with my pension money after retiring, my retreat from the world. What about the cabin, Douglas? Another pause. Longer this time. Oh, that. Yeah, I had to sell it. Got $190,000. Great price, actually. The real estate market up there is hot right now. The buyers take possession next month. My chest tightened. That cabin wasn't just property. It was where Carol and I had planned to spend our golden years, where I'd been going every other weekend since she died, sitting on the back porch, watching deer graze in the clearing, feeling close to her memory. You sold my cabin? Dad, you never use it anymore. It was just sitting there, costing money in taxes and upkeep. And technically, since I have power of attorney, you don't have power of attorney. Those papers you signed. Last month when you were in the hospital for your heart episode, remember? I brought them to your room at Columbus Memorial. You were worried about what would happen if something serious was wrong. I remembered being in the cardiac unit for 2 days in September. Chest pains that turned out to be stress-related, probably from working too many double shifts at the mall during back-to-school season. Douglas had visited both days, brought some papers he said were insurance forms and medical directives. I'd been groggy from the medication they had given me for the stress test, signed whatever he put in front of me. Douglas, I said, my detective instincts finally kicking through the shock, you forged those documents. I didn't forge anything. You signed them. I have witnesses. While I was medicated and couldn't think straight, That's exploitation of an elderly person. That's fraud. He laughed, but it sounded forced, nervous. Dad, don't be dramatic. You're not elderly, you're 59, and I'm your son. Everything you have comes to me eventually anyway, right? I just needed it sooner. This startup is going to set us both up for life. That's when something shifted inside me. The hurt father disappeared, and the 25-year veteran of financial crimes investigation took over. Have a good trip to San Francisco, I said, my voice calm as still water. Enjoy it. Dad, you sound weird. Are you okay? I'm fine. We'll talk when you get back. I hung up and went straight to my computer. Time to find out exactly what my son had done, and how he'd done it. Because if Douglas thought he could run a long con on a detective who'd spent a quarter-century investigating exactly these kinds of schemes, he was about to learn a very expensive lesson. The first thing I did was call my bank, Regional Trust, where I'd banked for 20 years. I knew the branch manager, Janet Morrison, from back when I'd worked fraud cases involving their customers. She'd helped me nail 3 different check kitings, schemes, and a mortgage fraud ring that had cost retirees over $2 million. Vincent, she said, when I got through to her direct line, I was wondering when you'd call. Those large transfers on your accounts triggered our fraud alert system, but the online authorizations looked legitimate. All the security questions were answered correctly. I need to see you today, Janet, and I need copies of all the authorization documents. Can you be here in an hour? I'll pull everything. I drove to the Regional Trust branch on Broad Street, the same route I used to take when heading downtown for court appearances. Janet's office hadn't changed much. Same fake wood paneling, same motivational posters about financial planning, but she looked older, grayer, we all did. Vincent, I'm sorry this happened, she said, spreading documents across her desk like evidence photos. Your son used your online banking credentials to move money from your savings and retirement accounts into your checking account, then immediately transferred it to an external account in his name at First National. She showed me the digital trail. Each transfer was initiated from my home IP address, using my login credentials, during times when Douglas had been at my house. Clever. Very clever. Janet, can you tell me the exact times these login sessions occurred? She checked her computer screen, adjusting her reading glasses. October 10th at 2:30 p.m., October 12th at 4:15 p.m., October 14th at 1:45 p.m. Each session lasted about 15 minutes, I thought back. October 10th, I'd been working my afternoon shift at Eastland Mall, dealing with a shoplifting incident in the Target. October 12th, I was getting groceries at Kroger and stopped by Home Depot for furnace filters. October 14th, I had my follow-up appointment with Dr. Martinez about the chest pains. Douglas had keys to my house, said he wanted them in case of emergencies. Those days, he'd texted saying he was stopping by to check on things while I was out. Just making sure everything's secure, Dad. You know how these neighborhoods are changing. Janet, I need you to freeze any remaining access to my accounts. Change all passwords, security questions, everything. And I need a complete forensic audit of my computer access logs. Vincent, this looks like identity theft, unauthorized computer access, elder financial abuse. Yeah, I know. I've prosecuted dozens of these cases. What do you want to do about it? I looked at the transaction records thinking about my son's voice on the phone. So confident, so entitled. I want to build a case that'll hold up in federal court. That evening, I drove over to Douglas's apartment complex in Clintonville. Riverside Commons, a modern development with brick buildings and professional landscaping. Way too expensive for a guy making $65,000 a year as an IT support engineer at a mid-sized company. When I'd asked him about it 6 months ago, he'd said his startup was providing supplemental income. Douglas wasn't home, but his girlfriend Barbara was there. I'd met her a handful of times. Nice girl, 29 years old, worked as a real estate agent for one of the big firms downtown. She seemed genuinely surprised to see me at the door. Mr. Pearson, Douglas is at the airport. His flight to San Francisco leaves at 9 p.m. Is everything okay? You look upset. I liked Barbara. She reminded me of Carol at that age. Direct, honest, no nonsense. Barbara, can I ask you something? How much do you know about Douglas's business dealings? Her face clouded over. She invited me in, and we sat in their living room. Modern furniture, big screen TV, everything clean and expensive looking. Honestly, Vincent, not much, and it's been worrying me. He's been really stressed lately, working late, taking phone calls at weird hours. Says the company is going through a rough patch, but that it'll turn around soon with this new investor. Has he borrowed money recently? She hesitated, clearly. Uncomfortable. Vincent, I probably shouldn't tell you this, but yes, he maxed out 3 credit cards last month, about $30,000 total. Said it was just temporary bridge funding until the investor money came through. And what? He's been gambling online. I've seen the poker sites on his laptop when he thought I wasn't looking, late at night, sometimes until 3 or 4 a.m. When I asked him about it, he said it was just for fun, small amounts, but my heart started sinking. Gambling addiction? I'd seen it destroy families during my police career. Good people who got in over their heads, started making desperate choices. How long has he been gambling, Barbara? I think it started about 2 years ago, right after... She stopped, looking uncomfortable. After what? Vincent, there's something Douglas never told you, something big, and I think it explains a lot about why he's been acting so strange. She got up and went to a bookshelf, pulled out a photo album. He made me promise never to show you this, but I think you have a right to know. She handed me a photo. A beautiful little girl with dark curly hair and Douglas's eyes, sitting on his lap at what looked like a birthday party. She was wearing a princess dress and had chocolate cake on her face. Who is this? That's Chloe, Douglas's daughter. She was 6 years old when she died in a car accident in 2022. The world tilted. I stared at the photo, my hands shaking. My granddaughter? Barbara nodded, tears in her eyes. Douglas was driving. It was raining, and he was texting while behind the wheel. He ran a red light at the intersection of High Street and Hudson. A delivery truck hit them in the passenger side, where Chloe was sitting. She died instantly. Douglas walked away without a scratch. I couldn't speak. I just kept staring at this little girl I'd never known existed. This piece of my family that had been hidden from me and then taken away before I ever had a chance to meet her. Where is she buried? Green Lawn Cemetery, over on Green Lawn Avenue. Vincent, he visits her grave every Sunday. He's never missed a week since the funeral. And her mother, Carol Brooks. She and Douglas were never married, but they'd been together since college. After the accident, after the funeral, she couldn't stand to look at him. She moved to Cincinnati. I think the guilt is eating him alive. I handed the photo back with trembling hands. Barbara, how much has Douglas lost gambling? I don't know exactly. I found some statements he'd hidden. Online poker, sports betting, some cryptocurrency trading that went bad. Maybe $95,000 over the past 2 years. He keeps saying he's trying to win enough to make things right with Carol, to set up some kind of fund in Chloe's memory, but he's just digging the hole deeper. Yes? And this startup thing, Tech Flow Solutions. Vincent, I looked into it. The company folded 8 months ago. There is no investor meeting in San Francisco. I think he went there to hide. I left Douglas's apartment and drove straight to Green Lawn Cemetery. It's an old place established in the 1800s with rolling hills and mature oak trees that make it feel more like a park than a burial ground. I spent 20 minutes walking through the sections, reading headstones in the dim light from the street lamps along Green Lawn Avenue. I found her in the children's section, a small granite headstone with angels carved into the corners. Chloe Marie Pearson, 2017 to 2022. Beloved daughter, forever in our hearts. I stood there in the dark, looking at this grave I should have visited dozens of times, thinking about birthday parties I'd missed, Christmas mornings, bedtime stories I'd never read. Douglas had stolen more than money from me. He'd stolen 5 years of being a grandfather. But standing there, I also started to understand. The gambling wasn't just addiction. It was punishment. Douglas was trying to lose everything because he thought he deserved to lose everything, and when that wasn't enough pain, he'd started stealing from the one person who'd never stopped believing in him. The next morning, I called my old partner, Roger Martinez. Roger had transferred to the white-collar crime unit at the Franklin County DA's office 3 years ago. We'd worked together for 7 years back when I was on the Financial Crimes Task Force. Vince, good to hear from you. How's retirement treating you? Roger, I need your help. I've got a case for you. I met him at his office in the county building downtown, the same building where I'd testified in hundreds of cases over the years. Roger's office was cramped, stacked with file boxes and computer printouts. He listened to my story without interrupting, occasionally making notes on a legal pad. How much evidence do you have? Bank records showing unauthorized access, digital forensics that'll prove he used my computer to steal my login credentials, forged power of attorney documents. Plus, I'm betting his laptop has keylogger software on it that captured my passwords. Roger leaned back in his chair. That's federal wire fraud, computer fraud, abuse of an elderly person, forgery. He's looking at 3 to 5 years in federal prison. Roger, there's something else. He had a daughter who died in a car accident. He was driving. I think he's gambling to cope with the grief and guilt. Doesn't excuse theft, but it might explain it. And it could be a mitigating factor at sentencing. Roger studied me across his desk. Vince, I have to ask. You want to prosecute your own son? I thought about Chloe's grave, about 2 years of grief Douglas had carried alone, about the $127,000 that represented my entire financial security for the rest of my life. Yeah, but I want to do this right. Full investigation, complete case file. When Douglas comes back from wherever he's hiding, I want him to understand exactly what he's done and exactly what happens when you cross someone who spent 25 years putting guys like him in prison. Over the next week, Roger and I built the case like we were back on the task force. The computer forensics specialist found exactly what I'd expected. Douglas had installed keylogger software on my laptop during one of his visits, capturing every password I typed. The banking investigation showed a clear pattern of theft, with Douglas moving money on days when he knew I'd be away from home. The power of attorney documents were obviously forged, different paper stock, wrong notary seal, signatures that didn't match my normal handwriting. But the real breakthrough came when we traced Douglas's financial activity. Online poker sites, sports betting platforms, cryptocurrency exchanges. The losses were staggering. $95,000 over 2 years, money he didn't have, borrowed from credit cards and personal loans. Roger pulled up Douglas's credit report. Vince, your son is $180,000 in debt. Credit cards maxed, personal loans in default, even borrowed against his car. The startup he told you about. TechFlow Solutions filed for bankruptcy 8 months ago. Douglas lost $50,000 of his own money in it, so he's been desperate for months. Desperate enough to steal from his father, apparently. We also found the real estate records for the cabin sale. Douglas had used a forged power of attorney to list the property with a realtor in Logan, claiming I was too ill to handle the transaction myself. The buyers, a retired couple from Dayton, had already put down $20,000 earnest money and were planning to move in next month. Roger, what happens to them? Fraud voids the sale. They'll get their money back, but they'll probably sue Douglas for damages. Emotional distress, loss of alternative opportunities, legal fees. He could be looking at another $50,000 in civil liability on top of the criminal charges. Douglas returned from his phantom trip to San Francisco on October 20th. I was waiting in the parking lot of his apartment complex when he pulled up in his Honda Civic at 8:30 p.m. The car looked tired, like it had been driven hard. He saw me through his windshield, and his shoulders slumped. He knew the game was over. Douglas got out of his car slowly, like a man walking to his own execution. He looked terrible. Unshaven, wrinkled clothes, dark circles under his eyes. When he saw me, he stopped walking. Dad, Douglas, we need to talk. We went up to his apartment. Barbara's car wasn't in the lot, and I could see boxes stacked by the door when we walked in. She was moving out. She left this morning, Douglas said, following my gaze. Can't say I blame her. We sat in his living room, father and son, with 25 years of police work and 32 years of parenthood between us. Douglas put his head in his hands. How much do you know? Everything. The keylogger software, the forged power of attorney, Chloe. At his daughter's name, Douglas broke. Not just tears, but the kind of sobbing that comes from 2 years of carrying guilt you can't share with anyone. Dad, I killed her. I was texting while driving, some stupid work email that couldn't wait 5 minutes. The light turned red, and I didn't see it until it was too late. Douglas, she was singing in the back seat. Some song from that Frozen movie. She always sang in the car, and then the truck hit us, and she just stopped. I waited. Sometimes as a cop, you learn that silence is more powerful than questions. I should have been the one to die, not her. So I started gambling, trying to lose everything, trying to punish myself. But then sometimes I'd win, And I'd think maybe this was how I could make it up to Carol, set up some kind of college fund for kids who lost parents. Something good from something so terrible. But you kept losing more than you won. Always. And then TechFlow failed, and I lost the $50,000 I'd invested. That was Carol's money too, from when we were together. Her savings for nursing school. Douglas looked up at me with red swollen eyes. Dad, I took your money because I thought if I could just win enough, I could pay back Carol, pay back you, make everything right. I know how crazy that sounds. It sounds like addiction. Yeah, it is. I pulled out the folder Roger had helped me prepare. Douglas, this is a copy of the criminal case file. Wire fraud, computer fraud, forgery, elder abuse. You're looking at federal charges. He nodded without even looking at the papers. I know. I've known since I took the first dollar that this day would come. The DA's office wants to prosecute. My old partner Roger Martinez is handling it personally. Good, Douglas said quietly. I deserve it. Maybe. But what you deserve isn't really the point anymore. The point is, what happens next? I leaned forward in my chair. Douglas, I'm going to give you a choice. Choice 1. We go to court, you plead guilty, you do your time, probably 18 months to 2 years. When you get out, we try to rebuild some kind of relationship. Choice 2. You check yourself. Into gambling addiction treatment today, you pay back every penny over 10 years, and you take me to visit Chloe's grave. Douglas stared at me. Why would you give me a choice? I stole $127,000 from you. I sold your cabin where you and Mom were going to retire because I failed you first. When Chloe died, you needed your father, and I wasn't there because I didn't even know you were hurting. I can't fix that, but I can try to fix what happens next. Dad, I don't deserve. This isn't about what you deserve. This is about what Chloe would want for her father. Douglas cried then, really cried, for what felt like the first time since I'd learned about all this. Dad, I want both. I want to face the consequences and get help. I need both. 3 days later, Douglas walked into the Franklin County DA's office with Roger and me. With my testimony and support, Roger negotiated a plea deal, 18 months in minimum security prison, 3 years supervised probation, full restitution of $127,000 plus $15,000 in interest and mandatory gambling addiction treatment. But before he reported to jail, Douglas took me to meet Carol Brooks. She lived in a small apartment in Fairfield, just outside Cincinnati, working as a nurse at Children's Hospital. When she opened the door and saw Douglas with me, her face went through a dozen emotions. Carol, Douglas said, this is my father, Vincent. Dad, this is Carol, Chloe's mother. Carol was 34, pretty in a tired way, with kind eyes that reminded me of my late wife. She invited us in for coffee, and we sat in her small living room, surrounded by photos of Chloe. Vincent, I wish we'd met when she was alive, Carol said. She used to ask about her grandfather. Douglas told her you lived far away. I did, I said. Too far away. Carol showed me more photos, videos on her phone of Chloe riding a bike, opening Christmas presents, blowing out candles on her 6th birthday cake just 2 months before she died. She would have loved you, Carol said. Simply, before Douglas reported to the minimum security facility in Orient, he showed me something on his laptop, a website he'd been working on called Pearson Digital Security, protecting seniors from online fraud. Dad, everything I learned about hacking bank accounts, keyloggers, phishing scams, I want to use it to help people like you avoid getting victimized. When I get out, if you'll work with me, we could make this a real business. Use my tech knowledge and your investigation experience. I looked at the site, educational videos, security checklists, even a fraud reporting hotline. It was good work, professional, helpful. Douglas, that might be the first good idea you've had in a long time. Today is Christmas 2025. Douglas was released from prison 4 months ago after serving 16 months. He's been sober from gambling for 22 months and hasn't missed a single counseling session. Our business, Pearson Digital Security, has helped 73 families recover stolen money and prevented fraud for hundreds more. We've testified before Congress about elder financial abuse and worked with the FBI to shut down 3 major scam operations. Every Sunday, Douglas and I visit Chloe's grave at Green Lawn Cemetery. We bring fresh flowers, usually daisies, which Carol says were her favorites. I tell her about the families we've helped that week, about the scammers we've caught. Douglas talks to her about staying strong, about making better choices. Sometimes Carol drives up from Cincinnati to join us. She's engaged now to a doctor at her hospital, a good man who understands about grief and second chances. I got my $127,000 back, plus interest. The cabin sale was voided, and I've decided to keep it, maybe leave it to charity someday. But more importantly, I got to know my granddaughter through the stories Douglas and Carol share, and I got my son back. People ask me why I didn't just let Douglas do the full prison sentence. The answer is simple. Justice isn't always about punishment. Sometimes it's about giving someone the tools to become who they're supposed to be. Douglas used to be a thief and a liar who threw his life away in a casino app. Now he's a man who helps other families avoid the mistakes he made. Chloe would be 8 now. I think she'd be proud of her daddy, and that matters more than any amount of money ever could. But make no mistake, if someone tries to scam me or my family again, they'll discover that once a cop, always a cop. And now they'll also discover that the best defense against thieves isn't just catching them, it's turning them into the people who catch the next ones. The greatest victory isn't destroying your enemy, it's saving them from themselves and then putting them to work, protecting others from making the same mistakes.